All right, folks, what's good? We are back again, another episode heading into Sweet 16 week. Providence coming up on Friday, and we had to get a special guest. He's been on the show before, and Greg, before we get going, I got to tell this story. I don't even know if you remember this, but do you remember the first time you came on with us? We were in a studio in like a bad part of Kansas City. And
you guys gave me directions, and I went down there, and it was like where the haunted houses are. And I parked, and I thought I was like walking into a murder or something. And then I think Anthony might have met me, and then we went up this kind of weird not weird staircase, just old. And we went into that room, and you guys had a bottle of booze for me, some Coke, Diet Coke or whatever, and some ice. And we talked for like an hour and a half. It was great. It was just an odd environment.
It was so funny because we were like, yeah, he has no idea who we are, and he just showed up to this weird part of town and joined us, and it was great. Like you said, we had a blast. But as we've spoiled, folks, if you're not watching on YouTube, we've got Greg Gurley back for the second time on the podcast. Had to get him on for a big week ahead. So, Greg, let's get going. Just give me your thoughts real quick heading into Friday, a little bit about this Providence team, kind of what you're thinking as the Hawks gear up for the big game Friday with Providence.
You know, Saturday was such a battle, you know, we didn't really get to watch Providence and Richmond because it was right after our game. But as you watch the highlights and you watch a little tape, they looked like Creighton to a degree in the way they shot the ball. And I think on the surface, if you look at them, you're like, all right, this is what gave us a lot of trouble against Creighton, and this is our next opponent. And they shot the ball unbelievably well. They've won a ton of games. They've won a ton of close games. So they're actually kind of similar to us. They play 4 around 1. You know, Bill talked about in his press conference today that if he had to compare us to a team, us and Providence are pretty similar. They got big wings. They got a big guy that is kind of like David. They use him probably a little bit less than we use Dave. And if they get hot, we saw what they can do. I mean, they were unbelievable what they did from the 3-point line. It looked like us when we played against K-State and Allen Fieldhouse, where we made 16 threes, and we looked like the best team in the country when we make shots. And that sounds kind of dumb. Yeah, we look good when we make shots, but, you know, we didn't make a lot of shots on Saturday, and we still won. So I like the fact that we can win in different ways. And then you add Remy to the mix, a guy that can hunt for shots and create his own. We're an entirely different team.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about Och a little bit. He's been struggling from deep probably since at Baylor. I think he's 17 for his last 62 from 3. So I wanted to ask you, like, is that a concern for you, or could it almost be a good thing just because they are advancing without him hitting shots, and he eventually probably will?
You know, it's typical Kansas narrative. We all say, well, it's a good thing because we won 7 in a row and he hasn't shot the ball well. But in the grand scheme of things, we want him to shoot better, obviously. He's carried us all year. And again, it's a sign of a good team when you win, when your star isn't playing great. He still gets his 15-ish, but he's not getting his 22 to 28. And we need him to get into the 22, 28. Granted, we're winning. Remy's going to take some of that away. But Ochai is a guy that can take us to the Final Four and to a national championship. He's that kind of a talent. So I guess I look at it as a positive that we won this much without him being good or great, but we need him to be better.
Yep. So, I mean, to kind of go more on that, do you think that is, I mean, being the star of a program is this at all mental? Is this legs from playing 39 minutes a game? Like, I mean, that guy played so many minutes, it felt like, or is it just flat out, he shot really well throughout the season and now, you know, it's not, you're not going to shoot 50% all year. So like,
yeah, he was playing at an unbelievably efficient rate. I mean, he was shooting above 50% for a while. He was great. Now, teams defend him differently. He's in the scouting report. It's like, do not let this guy beat you. Do not let Ochai Agbaji beat you. So they face guard him. He catches it. They're right on him. A hand up on everything. When he drives to the bucket, they're hitting him. When he's cutting, they're hitting him. And if they don't call it, which they haven't been, it becomes a much more physical tournament. Then he's got to figure out a way to adapt. And again, he's getting his 15-ish, but he's not getting, I mean, there's a crucial point in the game against Creighton where I think we were up 6, and he got a wide open 3 and he missed it. Somebody got the rebound. He got it right back, and he missed another wide open one. You're like, that's not what we saw in December. So I don't know if it's tired legs. I don't know if it's I don't know what it is. Now, it's not the end of the world because he's been great and he's going to continue to be great. But do we need him to play better? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess like one thing we've talked about like all year is it feels like this team, they go through like 5-minute stretches every game. Maybe that's just college basketball, but where they just like fall asleep on offense. They can't score. Is that still like a concern to you? Is that your biggest concern? Or is like, I mean, I know we just talked about Ochai cooling down a little bit, but Remy's all of a sudden looking like an All-American or playing at that level. Is that still concerning you, or do you have any other concerns with this team going forward?
I think defense would probably be my biggest concern about how do we guard. I think we're a good defensive team, not great. We're won 30 games, so take everything I say with the Kansas math and a Kansas mentality that, I think people down the road to our west and to our east would take this in a heartbeat. But we want perfection. So if I'm nitpicking, I don't want to see the defensive breakdowns that we sometimes have when, guy gets open looks and they hit us and we all look at each other like, whoa, that was your guy or whatever. So again, I'm nitpicking because we've been so good all year and we figured out a way to win. But as you progress in the tournament, you're not playing against teams that have 6 guys like Creighton. You're playing against Providence that can hit you. You're playing against an Iowa State team that's playing great right now, or a Miami team that's got all the confidence in the world. So the droughts concern me for sure. But as I watch college basketball, everybody has those. I think we had the one that amazed me the most was, I think it was our first game of the Big 12 at Oklahoma State. Almost a 10-minute drought, and we won by like 11. Some of it shows you how good we could be if we don't do that. Now, I hate backtracking and saying I'm nitpicking because I don't want to do that. But if I'm a perfectionist, the droughts concern me a little bit.
Yeah. So when you think about Providence and so obviously they got hot this last weekend. I can't remember how many threes they made in that second round game, but it was a lot. And so I think the big fear with Kansas fans is we've seen the last 2 tournament losses. We just got absolutely torched from the 3-point. USC, we got torched from every area, but Auburn, it just felt like they just had wide open look after wide open look. If you were to kind of look at this game Friday and say this is why we could lose, do you think it comes down to the shooting of is it going to be them getting hot from 3 that could kill us, or is it going to be maybe us not being able to score? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what should we be scared of the most heading into Friday.
Well, I think in the tournament setting, you worry about teams getting hot against you, and you worry about going 3 of 26 from a 3-point line. That's the equalizer. That's the one that's the big difference maker. And I was a part of some teams that lost in the tournament because we went crazy cold from the 3-point line. And we use that as such a weapon, but it can also be a settling thing to where all you do is settle for threes. And if you make 3 out of 26, you're going to lose. And that's the difference maker. So I've been a part of too many losses when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously the point guard situation has been like a huge topic throughout KU fans, like the KU fan base this year. And I actually asked these two, like on our tournament preview, if there was any chance Remy could play more minutes than DeJuan, and he has. So like I wanted to ask you, are you like surprised at how well Remy's playing and how much he's playing, or do you think it's just because he's 100% healthy now?
Well, number one, I would say that people need to stop worrying about whether or not Remy starts. Bill and I talk about this all the time in our pregame interview in November and December when our whole fan base is concerned about who's going to start. It doesn't matter. It matters who plays the most minutes. And lately, that's been Remy, or maybe not most minutes, but the most productive. So not that I'm not saying you guys are asking that. I'm just saying in general, that's what people are like. Why wouldn't he start? Well, I would say, why mess with it? Because it's kind of been working over the last 3 or 4 games that Remy doesn't start. He comes in and provides that spark. You take DeJuan out, you put him back in, they play together, and it just seems to work. Why mess with a good thing? Am I surprised? I mean, I don't know if I'm surprised because I know how good Remy can be. We just haven't seen that because of injuries. You know, that was like, I think it was that makeup game. What game? It was the Nevada or George Mason. One of those like late in December when he hurt his knee. And we didn't think it was much, but it was actually something. So really from late December to now, we didn't really see him. You know, I think he came back at Baylor and did a couple things and he was okay. You know, that stretch where we played 4 games in 8 days, but it was truly the Texas Tech game in the Big 12 tournament where the light kind of came on and he was great. And he's been great ever since. And we're an entirely different team with him because we got 5 guys on the floor that can score. DeJuan gets exposed a little bit. Not his game. He can make shots, but he can also, you know, teams gear their defense to let DeJuan shoot. And if he's not efficient, it looks bad. So he just adds a whole nother bullet in our gun, so to speak, that can make us be the best team in the country.
So how, like, I think what's been the main takeaway for me is you see the transfer portal taking off, and more times you're going to probably have situations where a guy like Remy shows up from a different program and steps in right away. And I think it's pretty clear Remy had to lose some old habits, maybe kind of buy in to Bill Self style of coaching, which I think's pretty demanding, right? So like, are you, I guess in my point of view, when I saw Remy get hurt and kind of miss all that time, like I had lost hope that Remy could catch up in time to get to the level of standard that Bill Self demands. But it seems like he's there. Like defensively, it feels like he's there and he's trying so hard. So like, are you surprised that he's gotten there? Or do you think it truly is just the knee got better?
So as you look at the transfer portal, first off, you're going to see a lot of this where it's going to take a while for a coach like Bill Self to trust a guy that's just coming in for 1 year, because they typically come in August. You get a couple months before the season starts, and it just there's no mojo, there's no jive. You haven't really molded, you haven't really meshed, I guess is the right word. So Remy's an extremely smart player. I mean, he knows how to play the game. He gets it. Has he been coached like Bill likes to coach? No. Bobby Hurley's a different coach than Bill Self, and it's something that took him a while to really figure out. It wasn't that Remy wasn't playing hard enough or they disagreed on anything. It's just different, and it doesn't happen overnight. When did Devontae and Frank really blossom? Later in their career, right? Yeah. So it takes time. We don't really have time with Remy, and the injury made that time even shorter because he was off the court for a good, let's call it 6 weeks. So now, Remy's figured it out. Bill's figured it out, how to use him. None of it's surprising because Remy's a big-time talent. I mean, 19.5 point game, 19.5 points a game in the Pac-12. That's a big-time player. Nobody expected that to happen here. Nobody. Preseason player of the year, that was a joke. Even Remy understood that. Bill understood. I remember sitting there like, hey, look at this. They're saying he's going to be the Big 12 player. That is the dumbest preseason awards are stupid anyway. I know you got to do them, but like I equate it to like my grandkids giving me a coffee mug that says "World's Greatest Grandpa." I'm not a grandpa, but you know what I mean. So it is what it is. He got it, and he's not even going to be on the list.
Yeah.
Doesn't make him any better or any worse. He's just been so even keel, so proud of him. So all the stuff that was going on over the last, all the chatter, whether it be on Twitter or whatnot, everybody had a cousin who had a barber, who had a friend that knew that it's stupid. Yeah. None of it's true. I'm on the inside, and I really don't know that much, let alone some other guy that thinks he knows a lot.
So, and B-Turn, you probably have some, but I just want to clarify. I think our listeners probably know what you're alluding to, but so you feel like things were pretty good with Remy and Bill all year. Obviously, maybe coaching things, but personality-wise, getting along, things like that, it was good. It was really just the injury that kind of took him out for a while.
100%.
Okay.
No question.
Confirmed. Breaking news, Twitter. There you go. You heard it here first.
I wanted to talk about Remy a little more because it's like we all know, like when he gets in the zone, he starts feeling it. He just starts chucking up shots. And I mean, it's been a blessing so far in the tournament. But like, is that a thing that like worries you or maybe Bill and the staff? Because like I remember late second half against Creighton, he took about 3 straight jumpers, and Bill just kind of looked to Norm or whoever he looked at on the bench, and you could tell he was pissed.
He's not afraid to be a big shot taker, and sometimes maybe too much. Can he be a big shot maker? Can he be a Chauncey Billups? Can he, I know exactly what you're saying because there was a span about let's say the 8-minute mark or whatever of the second half, and we get a 6-point lead, they'd hit a 3, and Remy would take a shot and miss. Like we never could get over that 5 or 6 point threshold. And yeah, he was hot in the first half, but that's a long time ago. And I don't think they were bad shots. They were only bad because they didn't go in. So I don't know. You kind of go with who brought you, and he did. So I didn't necessarily, again, I don't think they were bad shots. They were just bad shots because they didn't go in.
Yeah. I mean, how we talked about this on our last pod on Sunday, but how bananas was it that McDermott, he decided to sag off DeJuan, but then just continued to do that with Remy? Like, did that kind of shock you as much as it did us?
Well, I think I read a quote that McDermott kind of gave himself a little grief because he said, don't guard their point guard. He didn't say, don't guard Juan, but guard Remy. He said, don't guard the point guard, or however he called it. I was a little surprised because, I mean, you watch the tape, they were just staring at him. Like there was no hand up or nothing. And you're like, okay. And for one shot, okay, or 2 shots, but then 2 became 3, 3 became 4. You're like, I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
And Remy is, I can always tell when he's about to shoot because he kind of gets that little motion. It's kind of jerky, and I don't know who I would compare him to as far as the way he plays. It's just so unique because he's quick, but he's not like the quickest guy on the floor, but he's able to get around people because of kind of the way he shimmies, and
he's shifty.
He's shifty, and he kind of moves his shoulders, but then he just bursts, and he's hard to guard because he's just different.
Yep. All right. So I want to transition a little bit to Jay Billis. I think you probably know Jay Billis pretty well, right?
Right.
He put out a list before the tournament of his top 10 coaches going in the tournament. And he had Mr. Bill Self 6th on that list. And that riled me up. That riled a lot of the fan base up. Now, I saw a lot of responses to people saying, oh, Bill deserves to be above Izzo, Few, guys like that. And so the people's response was, Bill's kind of lacking in maybe Final Fours compared to those guys or things like that. So, I guess my question is, one, Jay Billis is wrong, right? And two, does Bill get hung up on those things at all? Does he care about his resume stacking up against other coaches, or is he just focused on this team getting as far as they can get?
Well, I think they're in human nature. I guess I'm speaking for him, but this is my opinion. I think human nature, you want your peers or guys that he respects, like Jay Billis, to rank him higher. I have not discussed that with him, but I would think anybody would want that. Does it bother him, and is he losing sleep over it? No. I think I glanced at the list, and I'll guess. I'm assuming K was first. Jay Wright second.
I think so. Yep. And I think Mark Few was third.
That bothers me.
If you had to really, rate him, let's say we're doing that. Mark Few hasn't won he doesn't have a chip, right? So not saying that he's a bad coach. He's played for a couple national titles, but he hasn't won. All right. So I would think if you won one, you would be ahead of a guy that wasn't a national champion, right?
Yeah.
If we're really dissecting this. And then it's kind of a jump ball on Izzo. Who are some other guys with
They had Coach Cal ahead of him, which he's won the same amount, but he's missed the tournament twice.
Yeah, Cal, Boeheim, Izzo. Who am I missing?
Yeah, it was. I think we got him. I think it's K, Jay Wright, Few, Izzo, Calipari, Self is how they had him. And I get it. Those guys are all pretty similar. And I think my thing with Izzo, and I'm not trying to trash Izzo, but he's been to a bunch of Final Fours, but making a Final Four as a 7 seed and a 5 seed when you have no shot to win at all, is that really, I'll take having a shot, I guess is my point. I like being a 1 seed in the tournament. And you do that enough, it's going to happen.
And it's an impossible list to make. And they did it for a reason, to have idiots like us talk about it. And it's good chatter. But in answer to your original question, does Bill lose any sleep over this? Absolutely not.
Okay.
I think he made some comments maybe last summer, kind of when the FBI stuff was coming out, about how motivated he was to coach and things like that. Do you sense any extra motivation from him, and maybe a little pep in his step, or just to win an natty, or do you think it's still the same?
I think it's still the same. Those guys are so driven every year at Kansas, Duke, Gonzaga, Villanova, whatever. Their goal is to win a title. And I don't think they could quantify any extra effort to do it or less effort. They go hard all the time. So whether it's FBI stuff, whether it's whatever, no, I don't think there's any outside things that make you want it more or less. Those guys that are driven like that have that mentality, no, that's all they think about. They're competitive people.
Yeah. So we've obviously talked a little bit about this pod we've got here in Chicago with Providence, Iowa State, Miami, and the big narrative has been the bracket has broken for Kansas. Kansas now has a pretty favorable draw. They've got the best odds to come out of the Midwest now by quite a bit. But as Kansas fans, we've seen this before, and we've been absolutely gutted by, not taking advantage of this. You think back to 2011 and things like that. Does the bracket breaking, can that almost sometimes add more pressure for the players?
I think sometimes it can, but this team is so focused, and they're veterans. Now, I say veterans, CB and Jalen or Dewan are veterans, and this will be their 5th NCAA tournament game in 3 years because of COVID zero. Last year was 2 games, one of which was a blowout, and then 2 games this year. So they're veterans, but they're really not, just because of how things worked out, with the way things have worked out the last couple of years. It sucks. So I would say, yes, it's a little scary. Do you lose focus? Okay, gosh, a 10 and 11 and a Providence, whatever. But no, Creighton is a great example of why you don't look ahead. Everybody in the country outside of the state of Nebraska thought Kansas was going to win by 15 because they had 6 guys. And the 6th guy doesn't even look at the basket. Andro Chikasvili, if I got his name right. I actually pronounced his name correctly, and Haney about fell out of his chair because he got a foul or something when I pronounced his name, and he goes, "That's amazing. You got that right." Because I'm typically pretty bad at pronunciations. And but he gave me a little pat on the back.
Go.
But anyway, the Creighton game, I think, should give you a little caution because, like, that was a wounded dog. And I look at this practice or this bracket as kind of that too. Dangerous. Wounded dogs will bite you. And Creighton bit us. They had the ball down 1 with under a minute to go. We won by 7, but that wasn't a 7-point game. So I think that lesson on Saturday will help us in this bracket.
Hope so. I think we're obviously all excited to see this go this way, but it definitely brings back terrifying memories of seeing the bracket break in 2011. And God, I guess in 2008 it did, and we took full advantage. So it goes.
Yeah, I mean, we beat Davidson in the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
I guess some people would say that was a breakdown, but then we go to a Final Four for the first time ever, or one of the last times, I guess, that all 4 number 1 seeds go there. So you got to beat 1 seeds to win. So, hey, the cliche, you got to beat good teams to advance. That's how it works. Providence is a really good team. Miami and Iowa State are really good teams. They're playing really good at the right time. We're going to have to win 2 games against 2 really good teams to advance.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you about the fan base that we could have in Chicago this weekend, just because all the alumni and stuff. So I guess if you could just talk about how huge that could be for us, and then maybe like a message just to get KU fans out there, and we can clip it and put it on Twitter and try to get all of our fans there.
Today in Bill's presser, he talked about that. He said, hey, because Fort Worth was good, but it wasn't great. Now, what you have to understand, and I know more about this because I'm in the Williams Fund and I know how it works because I have to deal with tickets and how it all. We get 1,000 tickets from the NCAA. Each school gets 1,000 tickets. So 4,000 of 20,000 go to the participants. The rest go to, whatever else, corporate sponsors and whatnot. Okay. So it's one of those things that your fans have to become resourceful. So Iowa State fans, when they come to Kansas City, they get the same amount of tickets that we get for the Big 12, but they go out and they get on StubHub or they get on whatever and get it. So I implore our fan base, the tens, if not 20 people that watch this podcast, go out and be resourceful. Get to Chicago. Buy tickets, wear your red and blue, go. And because Iowa State fans are going to do it. There's going to be Miami fans and Providence fans there. We supposedly have we do have a big fan base in Chicago. A lot of alums. We need you there. Come to the United Center. Be loud. Our guys feed off of good crowds.
Yep. I thought in Bill, I think Bill kind of commented on this in his presser today, but it didn't feel like we had a huge crowd advantage in Fort Worth. And I thought that was kind of weird. Like, it didn't feel like the normal first weekend type vibe where we've got a huge crowd advantage.
I think what happens is a lot of my guys that are donors, they kind of wait. Like we're going to win 2 games in Fort Worth. I'm going to go to Chicago. And then you got your people that don't go to Chicago. They're going to wait for New Orleans. So there's a little bit of that. Fort Worth's about a 13,000 seat arena. I mean, we got half as many tickets. We get 500 tickets for that. So again, you can't call me and get the tickets you have to get on StubHub and be resourceful. And some people did, some people didn't.
Yep. We asked you a little bit about this before we got going on the pod, and I don't think you had seen it, but just as a update, Drew Gooden tweeted the other day that he's cheering for Duke to win the national title. And we haven't talked about this. We are not Coach K guys. We don't like Coach K at all. We love to dunk on him on this podcast, as lame as that sounds. Should we take Drew Gooden's jersey down? I suggested it on Twitter. I was kind of joking, but the more I think about the tweet, it's got me fired up.
Well, that's extreme. And
I'm kidding. I'm kidding, just so everyone knows.
Legendary KU Jayhawk, and if you know Drew, he's one of the best dudes ever. I'd love to see the context around that, because I'd be – I mean, he said it, but I'm shocked because he's a loyal KU guy. Do you have it?
Yeah, he said, "I never thought in a million years that I would say ... I want Duke to win the NCAA tournament. Coach K deserves to go out on top."
That's not the context I was hoping to hear, because that sounds pretty
pretty straightforward. Yeah.
That's as clear as it gets.
And it has not been deleted.
It's surprising. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions. I don't mind Coach K winning games. I don't root against him until we play him. I don't root for him. I don't know Mike Krzyzewski is fine. I mean, quite honestly, I got a little, like a lot of us, I thought the farewell tour was a little much. But, whatever.
We love hearing
what
that.
you got to do, and I'm sure it's not all him. I'm sure it's people that were getting him to do that, but I don't know. I guess it's surprising that Drew would say, "I'm going to dig a little bit into that."
Yeah, we that's mainly why I brought it up. We got to get you to figure out what's going on with that. I'm hoping we have Drew Gooden come out and be like, "I was hacked. I'm sorry. Someone stole my phone." You know how celebrities always do when they tweet something stupid. Just say you got hacked and we'll forgive you.
Right.
On Coach K, one last thing. So you obviously played for Roy Williams. You had to kind of love that final home game at Cameron. Any chance Roy shot you a text with just a little funny message that they ruined that night?
No, he didn't. But I mean, that was the day of our Texas game, and we all went wherever we went to go drink and celebrate the Big 12, and we're watching, and we were all kind of because when I turned it on, Duke was up by 12 in the first half, and they complete control of the game, and then you're we weren't really paying attention. And then at the end, so I don't know, it had to be super awkward after that game to have that fireside chat or whatever they had out at half court with all those former players. So I don't know. I don't take any, I don't get excited when they lose or win. I'm worried about Kansas. Yeah. I want us to win. I want the good teams that we could play in the NCAA tournament to lose. Sure. If the path is easier, sure. Yes, that whatever makes Kansas more successful that's out of our control, sure. Do I care about Tobacco Road? It's nice story. It's good rivalry, great rivalry, one of the best ever. But I'm not from there. I don't really care.
Yeah. All right, so we'll try and wrap this up here in a bit, but I wanted to kind of go around the rest of just kind of looking at the Sweet 16 the rest of the way in the tournament. If you look ahead, and obviously we don't want to look ahead, but who are some teams? I think Gonzaga is obviously one that comes to mind, but who are some teams that you really like their chances to get to the title game, or someone maybe you can see KU meeting in the Final Four if they get there? Who are just kind of the teams you're most focused on?
Well, it's hard not to be a fan of Gonzaga. I mean, they kind of have it all. I mean, they got good guard play. Drew Timmy's so unique. Chet Holmgren is even more unique. I mean, there's no other player like him. Do they have the athletes? I mean, last year they got exposed in the title game by a better, more offensive-oriented playmaking team. Will that happen again? Maybe. If it's against us, I hope so. I look at Arizona when they're clicking as one of the best teams in the country. They should have lost. One of the biggest travesties in officiating I've ever seen. And I can't believe that wasn't called. But it just baffled me that if it wasn't a foul, then it should have been an over and back. And if it wasn't a foul or an over and back, it should have been a flop.
And the clocks, did you see the clock stop with like 2.2?
Everything that could have happened incorrectly happened. And I was kind of disappointed in the coverage. I didn't think they talked about it enough.
They didn't show a replay, and they missed tip-off.
They were too worried about the dunk at the buzzer to see if it counted or not. They didn't show like coming back from break.
Can you imagine if the clock did what it did, where it kind of paused, and then it paused enough where he actually made the dunk with 0.2. I mean, it would have been. If you're a TCU fan, you got to be absolutely livid. I mean, I'm mad. I had nothing. I mean, other than me being a Big 12 guy wanting to see them advance. That's all I care about. I don't know the TCU guys, but I wanted to see them win. And they got absolutely jobbed. I can't believe it didn't happen. I don't know if there's been a response by anybody from the officials or whatever, but it was awful.
I mean, Mike Miles got drilled twice. Like, I don't even think it was just one foul.
A bigger play was maybe 2 minutes before that, maybe a minute before that. He goes up on the right side, gets hammered, knocked to the ground, fall, and on the other end, they hit the three in the right corner to tie it. Like, I mean, then they called some really touchy fouls in the overtime against TCU. Like, they got whatever less than zero is, they got less than zero breaks.
Yeah. And that's like a big thing in the tournament so far is officiating. I think people are really frustrated with it with North Carolina and Baylor game. That was bad. Like, do you think it's been worse lately? Or I don't know. Are we just seeing things kind of flare up in big moments, or is officiating kind of gone downhill? Feels like it's gotten worse.
You know, it's amplified because of slow motion and replays and all that, but worse, I don't know about it. Again, I think it's amplified because of the stage, but it's been amplified for a while. Like the technical in the Illinois game was a joke. Remy Martin's dunk against Texas Southern was way worse, and there was no technical call. That poor guy dunked it, and his body was kind of like this.
It was physics. It was physics.
It's gravity and physics. It's ridiculous. And actually, that had a massive effect on the game. I think at that point, it was like a 6-point game, and it just was a momentum killer. Again, I'm of the opinion that if I got to get on the podium as a player and answer for my mistakes or Chris Webber calling a timeout or whatever it was, I mean, why don't officials have to do that? I don't understand. I really don't get it. I mean, I just and maybe the right answer for the guy is, hey, I missed it.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be acceptable. But to try to defend, because there's video footage, it is what it is. He got bumped, and we call the game the same all 40 minutes. No, you don't. That would have at the 10-minute mark of the first half. That is 1,000% a foul.
Yes, not even close. All right. Well,
I just want to hear like how you're feeling about Chicago as a whole, how you're feeling about the squad, and I guess if you want to give like a prediction on if you think KU is going to make it to New Orleans, go ahead.
Well, number one, I'm the ultimate optimist. I think we're going to beat, the Milwaukee Bucks or the Golden State Warriors if we're playing them. So if you don't believe that I'm going to pick us to go to New Orleans, then, you're crazy. Of course I'm going to pick that. Reality-wise, I love our chances, and that's not just me being positive guy. I like the way this team's playing. I like the addition of Remy, even though he's not an addition. He's just come to the forefront. I think it completely changes what we do. I love it when Remy and DeJuan are in the game together, because I think they're really good together. DeJuan is a massive part of this team, and anybody that doesn't believe that doesn't understand basketball. I mean, at one point around the Texas Tech game, I did a stat. It was like the last 7 games, DeJuan was like 45 assists to like 4 turnovers. It was like a 10-1, or maybe not 4, maybe it was 45-7 or something, but it was close to a 9 or 10-1 ratio.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And DeJuan is a massive part of this team. He's going to continue to be a massive part. So I love where we're at. I love where we're going. Matchup wise, if we were playing Arizona or Gonzaga, I'd have the same opinion. I don't worry about Providence, Iowa State, or Miami, because we need to do what we do. And I think what we do is better than them. Now, will that happen? I guess we'll find out Friday night.
I love it. I mean, we could all probably use that type of positivity. Like I said, we always seem to jump towards the games that we've hated in the past, rather than just, hey, this team's good. Let it play out.
Over all the years that I've done this, I've come to the conclusion that my feelings and my emotions mean nothing to anybody.
I tell myself that like 8 times a day.
So why not just be positive? Like, why worry and rack your brain about something that you have absolutely no control over? An old coach used to always say, control the controllables. And my only controllable is how I project my voice to the radio listeners, to the television listeners, and why not be positive? Now, I don't mind being honest, just like I was early on with you guys. There's things we need to work on. There's holes. We're not the best team in the country by any stretch, but we can be. So we got to fix some things, but we're not. This isn't the most talented Kansas team we've ever put out there, but when you take into account chemistry and brotherhood and momentum, we're as good as anybody.
Yeah. Love it. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We're glad to have you back. Glad you didn't have to risk your life coming to the sketchy part of downtown Kansas.
God, yeah. Like, you guys, I hope you're making some money. And pre-Zoom, did you have a better place than that shit box?
My old kitchen was our spot at first. So.
Hey, Jeff Graves one time just showed up to AB's kitchen, and just same with you. We had a bottle of whiskey for him, and he just drank. I don't even know if he knew we were recording a podcast. He just talked for hours and told some great stories. That pod had to be edited a little bit. We had to take some things out of that one.
Dude.
But
Gravy was he was at No Other Pub last Saturday. I got to see him, or 2 Saturdays ago.
He's wild. He says some of the craziest shit I've ever heard in my life.
I played a lot of ball with Gravy's brother Robbie, who played at UMKC. We used to play a lot of summer basketball together. So I knew Jeff when I say a little kid. He was younger than Robbie. He's only like 2 years younger, but I mean, could have easily been the most outstanding player of the Final Four if we won. It might have been Collison, might be whatever, but Jeff's box score, what was it, 18 and 17 or something?
Yeah. Something like that.
Wait, I forget. Doesn't we were talking about banners earlier, hanging jerseys up there. If you're most outstanding player in the Final Four, is it Otto?
I think so.
Wow.
Can you imagine Remy getting his jersey retired?
Let's hope it happens.
Yeah.
I'll vote for that 100 times out of 100.
Yeah, love it. Graves up there would have been legendary, but yeah.
Bill would have loved that.
There was a guy at Louisville. When Louisville won the title maybe 10 years ago, it was a no-name. It was not no-name.
Luke Hancock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
47 threes.
Luke Hancock is probably in the Yum Center rafters, right? I don't know if everybody uses that same criteria.
Probably. Yeah.
He
It's
went
crazy
nuts
just
in that
what
game.
it's crazy what 2 games in April or late March can do to your entire legacy. Like that's what is great about college basketball and also can kind of suck for guys that don't make it that far. But
The Final Four that I played in '93, Donald Williams in '93, North Carolina wins. Never heard from Donald Williams again. But in that Final Four, and he was a great player. Don't get me wrong, but he's the most outstanding player with the Fab Five and Eric Montross and Derek Phelps and I mean all these guys at Carolina, and it was Donald Williams.
it's awesome. Well, let's
let's
hope.
You guys are looking at me like we weren't born until like 98.
I'll be honest. I'm a pretty big college basketball guy. Never heard of Donald Williams.
Never heard.
Not a one of them.
And that's not you're not a bad guy because you don't, but come on, do your research.
I know. I'll be more prepped on your Final Four games next time.
How many points did I have in that Final Four?
4.
Overboard.
Just 1 3?
Yeah.
Or wasn't like free throws or anything like that. If you made a real 3, then that's big time.
Real three. I scored more
Yeah.
points in the Final Four than Paul Pierce.
Frank Mason.
Frank.
Shots fired.
Kind of a trick statement, but
Hey, it's true.
I scored the same amount as those guys. So
Numbers
feeling
don't
good about that. Yeah,
Fair.
it's just
Fair.
facts. Well, all right. You guys got anything else for Greg?
Let's get to New Orleans.
let's do it.
Let's
Keep
do
that
it.
New Orleans streak rolling.
Rock chalk.